Alright, welcome to the show. Going to be talking about a little bit of Lovecraft today. I just recently finished this book, the Lovecraft Compendium. This was supposed to be a sort of a buddy read with Slaughterport, but he reads like 4 different books at the same time for some reason, so I couldn't wait for him. I don't work like that. I can't really. I like to focus on one thing at a time. And actually brings up an issue I had with this. When I started reading this, for whatever reason, I could not focus on it. So, and I read a lot of these in high school. So this is kind of a second reread for me. But I had a lot of trouble focusing, and I thought about what was different now from then. Well, back then, I lived way out in the country, the middle of nowhere. So that's one thing. Nothing surrounding. Number 2, no cable television, no internet, no telephone, no cell phone for sure. We didn't even have a landline. So, I don't know, that's like 4, 5, and 6. I don't know how many reasons, but you could do anything and focus on anything. There was absolutely zero distraction. And in today's living, there's like a million things to distract you from focusing on a simple story. So when I first started, the first thing that's in here is Dagon. And it's short. It's like, I don't know, 3 to 5 pages long. Real short story. Not much happens in it. But I had to reread the thing like 3 times because I just couldn't put everything else out of my mind, sit down and read a basic story. So my impression on Dagon is not the best. It's not my favorite story by far. Nothing much really happens, and I don't know, it just didn't really do it for me. And then the next story in here was Call of Cthulhu, which also had a hard time focusing on that one. Didn't like the style of it. Didn't like how you're kind of reading about. It's like you're reading somebody else's account of something from somebody else's account of something. Wasn't my thing either. And then it finally got to the Dunwich Horror. And maybe because this one is longer than the other 2, there is more story. There's, I don't know, a lot more room to breathe in this one, so I could focus on it much better. And I read it pretty quick, and I really liked it. I tried to track down the movie with Dean Stockwell, and it is not streaming anywhere. The DVD's out of print, the Blu-ray's out of print. I do not want to pay $50, $60 for something I might not like, because judging from the trailer, it looks like it's going to be a different experience than the story. So hopefully, I've seen it before, but it has been a long time, and it's just different when you read something and then you get to watch it again. I like comparing literary works to, their film counterparts. But I don't know when that's going to happen. And the 4th story in here was actually, currently this is my favorite Lovecraft story, and it's The Whisperer in Darkness. This was just a really cool story, and it's about these 2 guys writing letters back and forth. One guy he's kind of tried to debunk some myths that were going on, and the other guy is living in the area where the myths are going on. And the skeptic becomes a believer over the course of the story. And it has just a really great ending. Lovecraft does a couple weird things where he'll say, and then I left the farmhouse in a hurry. And you're like, what? What do you mean? He skips the part with what he saw to make him leave the farmhouse. But he'll come back to it later. And I think he does this because he wants to end on a shock. He wants you to end on a very memorable note. And this short story does do that. So I have kind of a problem with the way he did it, but I like the result, so I'm okay with it. And like I said, it's still my favorite Lovecraft story. And then the last one in this book is The Haunter of the Dark. And again, it was pretty good. None of these are bad stories. The first 2 I couldn't focus on. Couldn't sit down and turn everything else off and read a simple short story. But this last one was pretty good. Not a whole lot happens in it either, and the ending is up in the air as to exactly what happens to the guy that the story's about. But you find out he's dead right at the beginning, so I'm not spoiling anything. It's kind of hard to get into the story of somebody when you know they ain't going to make it through right at the beginning of the story. But again, this was a real small collection of Lovecraft, and I think I probably read 3 out of the 5 of these when I was in high school. So a little bit of a revisit and a little bit of something new, and I found my favorite Lovecraft story in it, so it's pretty cool. I think I got this for like $3 at Half Price Books. And then I went ahead and this was in, I think, the last video I did, Mysterious Cat Stories. I went ahead and read the Lovecraft one in here while I was waiting to pick my next book. And it's pretty cool. It was, let's see here. It's The Cats of Uthal is the name of this one. And it's a good story. It's a good cat story. Basically the premise, the theme is don't F with cats. So I did like that one. And then some of the other authors I wanted to check out in here. I read Baloo by August Derleth. August Derleth, we may not really know and fully appreciate Lovecraft if it weren't for August Derleth. He's kind of responsible for getting his work out there after he passed away. So big props to that guy. And his story was really cool. It was a good story. And then I read, so far this is my favorite story in the book. It's Catnip by Robert Bloch. And it is your basic old school Tales from the Crypt. Just this person is not a good person. They do a series of things. Something happens at the end. They get their just desserts. Totally very EC Comics. Very cool Robert Bloch story. And the last one I read in here was The Jewel of the Seven Stars by Bram Stoker. And I read it because I love Dracula, but it's the only book I've ever read, or short story, or anything of Bram Stoker that I've ever read. So I wanted to kind of see, him to take on a different thing. And this was less about a cat and more about a mummy, but it was still pretty cool. It's no Dracula. They kind of said in here that they at the foreword that they kind of thought it was one of his better works than Dracula. I don't agree with that, but it's pretty cool. And I don't know if I'll read any of the rest of these or not. I'm kind of waiting on a book to come in so I can start reading that. But again, these are just a couple of Lovecraft things. And if you've got anything you want to say or add, please comment below. We can talk about it. And until next time, stay afraid.